Welcome back to Main Street Firefighting, podcast by Fire Engineering. My name is Shady. Chris Tobin and I run this podcast, every 6 or so weeks, talking about legacy building construction primarily. Today, we are joined by Captain Bobby Eckert from Camden Fire Department, here to talk with us a little bit about his class that he brought to FDIC this year and some stuff about building construction. So, Bobby, before we get started, can you introduce yourself to us? Tell us a little bit about the culture of your fire department, manpower, tactics, that kind of thing.
Okay. My name is Bobby Eckert. I'm fire captain in Camden, New Jersey, which Camden sits directly across the river from the city of Philadelphia. It's a very old city. A lot of Type 3 ordinary, and a lot of Type 5 older frames. And we got about 200 guys. We have 9 companies, 6 fire stations, and we're an aggressive interior fire department. We're East Coast, that's what we do. Chris does it, the West too. So it's
Midwest.
Midwest. So we have an aggressive culture, and we pride ourselves on the interior firefight. So due to building construction, we have to, because it's spreading going down the road.
So can you talked a little bit about, you have a lot of Type 3 and Type 5 buildings. So are most of your residential Type 5 then, and your commercials the Type 3? Or is it a pretty good mix?
It's a mix, but it's kind of like row house USA.
Mhm.
Philadelphia and Camden are very similar how they're built. So it's a lot of Type 3 ordinary constructed row houses, a lot of Type 3 ordinary and commercial. And we're seeing a lot of new stuff being built. We're seeing a lot of new stuff being built. A lot of the hybrid, the Type 2, the non-combustible, and they put the wood frame on top. And we do see a lot of legacy buildings too. You see a lot of buildings get repurposed. People, I guess during COVID, got a little creative with their their home engineering, and are doing a lot of interesting things with building construction. So it's always good to just keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening where you work.
Yeah, for sure. Can you tell us a little bit about what piqued your interest in building construction? Was there a specific event that happened?
Yeah, it was actually studying for a promotional exam. I realized in the orientation guide that it said like 37% of the score it was off building construction. I was like, oh, that's not good, because I'm not too good with it. Like I can recognize it. And then I opened up Chief Dunn's book, which was on the reading list, Collapse Burning Building 2nd edition, and I felt like he wrote the book for me, and I just started really getting into it. I've always had an eye for older buildings. For the house I grew up in was built in 1761. So I have, I learned a lot about building construction from that home, but to make it applicable to firefighting, I didn't do that when I should have. So I kind of just self-taught myself and kind of just fell in love with it. And the cool thing about where I work is I can take the chapter 2 of Chief Dunn with all the terms and literally walk around and see everything that's there. So it just bit me.
Right. So you brought a building construction class to FDIC this year.
I did.
Can you tell us a little bit about that class? What your goal was to teach from it, and then why you chose to bring that this year?
Yeah. So the thing about building construction is, and as you both know, it's not taught well. And then there's people out there that claim to be experts and their information isn't good.
Right.
So it could, because your experience is totally going against the information that's out there. So, like, for example, you really don't know what type of roof you have under you until you cut a hole in the roof and look down. So, it's tough to navigate the information as a young firefighter. And that's why I try to think as how I was as a young firefighter, which was anxious and getting thrown a lot of information. And I remember the building construction chapter, and I probably fell asleep during it. And, that was that. But, now I think it's evolved into such a poorly written chapter in any book, that's out there. That's, like a general firefighting manual for an entry-level firefighter. It's just not good information. A lot of it's wrong, which is even crazier. And then even that, the pictures don't match the construction type. So you're like, I just feel like, I'm like, hey man, like I taught this to myself. How I taught it to myself, let me try to teach it to other people.
Mhm.
So I just kind of started rolling. I have a ton of pictures. I take pictures of buildings all the time. Like I'm sure you both do. So I just made the program, and, I figured, hey, let me see if I could. I did last year was my first time at the FDIC. So I figured, let me try this one. And I'll tell you what, delivering it today here, it pushed me out of my comfort zone a little bit, but it just skims the surface. We're just getting the service. So just understand the 5 types, pictures of the building so they can visually see them, and pictures of the outside of the building. I don't even go like again, it's a very basic class.
Right.
So, but I hope that it forces the person who was in the class to be like, let me go pick up Chief Dunn's book, or let me go, read or take a picture or walk around and see what I can learn about building construction. So
Piques their interest a little
yeah,
bit.
try to pique their interest. And, I think hopefully I can evolve into something like a 4-hour class, but right now I have too many kids to worry about that.
It seems to be the common theme with other people we talk to that teach or like buildings is that it was self-taught, unfortunately.
It has to be.
It
Who's
has
going
to
to teach it to you?
Right. As
So-
you said, the books.
So
And it's
you bring up a
texted
good
wrong.
point is, so people that don't know, Bobby and myself and Lex, we're fortunate to go across the country teaching building construction. And that's based off the fact that it's a necessity and where we work are very old cities. So we got to see a lot of this stuff that maybe other people don't get to see. We're not surrounded by new suburban construction. We're surrounded by very old legacy environments, which is really cool because we see the buildings in a different way and the older buildings that most people don't see. So now you've been out, in the country teaching for a couple of years now. What's the feel that you're getting as the overall state of the fire services kind of knowledge with legacy buildings? Because
It's a good question, Chris. And to be honest with you, I would say that the feel that I get are people are usually surprised or like in shock that it's happening. And they're like, what are they doing to the building? And I'm like, yeah, well, they're literally taking the guts out and putting new guts in. What? And, so they don't, I feel like because the fire service doesn't have that basic understanding. When you start getting a little more in depth, you see the hamster wheel going in their mind, like, oh my goodness, like this is actually happening. But again, a lot of people view the fire as the obstacle. Man, the building's the obstacle. The fire is the objective.
sure.
Right.
As soon as you view the fire as the obstacle, you lost.
Yeah.
You lost. It's over. So if you have a chance to learn how fire travels, how fire moves, where it's going to be next, obviously fire behavior is a great starting point, but building instruction is the way to understand where it's going to be next.
So from what we've noticed that when we go out, it's really hard to have a class as far as a back and forth in class because and we start a lot of our classes too, and we've done everything from an hour 45 to a full 8 hours. And it's really hard to get anything back from the class because we're starting off basic, right? The 5 types, you have still 101. And then we ask these questions and we're like, no one's raising their hands. And
Yeah, they don't know.
They don't know.
They don't know.
And it's like mind blowing because, but we shouldn't be surprised because I remember not too long ago, I was in the same boat,
It's interesting. And I'm assigned the recruit class now, and I'm teaching fire 1 and 2 to them. And the slides for the building something chapter were mind blowing to me. I was like, and they're writing it down. So I'm trying to explain it to them in a way where they understand it. I was able to do it, I hope, but it's just, I feel like the entire fire service is on a different page when it comes to building instruction, from legacy construction to modern building instruction to whatever. And then now look at us, we're all battling against each other because this guy says this guy says that guy says this. So I feel like people just ignore it because it's not widely taught. And there's a lot of contradictory out there.
Mhm. But I can understand too, for some people, especially newer people, they're like, well, the book said it. Like, this is where you tell me I have to pass this test and I have to learn
Yep,
this.
which
and
makes
this
it even
said
worse
it.
because how much unlearning, how much
Right.
time's wasted in your classes having to unteach bad information. We go through it every class.
Every time, it's from anything we teach, and we just teach firefighting. We don't do anything technical, but you look at like some as simple as a hose line stretch. I mean, we'll teach hands-on. The hose line stretches are outrageous, and to be like, yeah, well, I saw a YouTube video, or this is what they taught me in Fire 1, and we're just like mind blown.
Mhm.
So it's all starts at the entry level firefighter, and how you teach that firefighter and train that firefighter. You can really set very positive foundations in their repertoire being a firefighter if it's done correctly.
And I think it's interesting too. People look at buildings and they think they know them because they've been in them. Somebody that's lived or worked in that town for their entire career, and they think they know the building, and then you take them and look at it, and you ask them a question about it, and they can tell you what business is in there, or maybe what business has been in there in the past, but they can't tell you about the construction at all.
Yeah, and well, especially the features on the building too. Like when I get a new firefighter, I get them out there, and we'll just talk building features. Not even talking about the inside, just parts of the building, and for or if you got a like a fire escape or something on the building, and then you start talking about loads.
Mhm.
People don't even know what a load is.
Yeah, it's unbelievable when we do these classes, and it's a feel good feeling when you're teaching a room of 20+ year, 30-year chiefs who have had it wrong for decades, and you see the aha moment because they thought this meant something else, and they're like, no, this is actually what it means. And then you take them out on the street, and then now they can see things they had wrong or never even noticed before. It's an unfortunate circumstance, but at the same time, it's glad to be the solution to that.
Yeah, I mean, I get good feedback, and you get people to come up to me and say thank you, and they'll, I'll leave, and they'll, email me or direct message me like, hey, what book do you recommend again? And like, so that means to me that they left, they thought about it,
Right.
went home, we're like, wow, I should really learn this. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's a home run. But again, you should be issued Chief Dunn's book in the Fire Academy.
And that's the thing is people think, full disclaimer, I learn every day about buildings, and there's some stuff I probably still have wrong that I haven't figured out yet. But the point is I was just like everyone else. We know buildings because we have all taken the time to deliberately learn and study them on our own, and you can too. Just got to read a book.
It's an amazing starting point. And, it's, I have dyslexia and I struggle to read very, very hardly. So, I know people have excuses when it comes to reading. Man, get off your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get off your phone. Get in your book, man.
Right.
It's I've been doing this thing once a week where I'm trying to not be on my phone at all,
Yep.
and it's been refreshing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I mean, you can put that book in your bathroom.
Well,
Seriously, put it in your bathroom.
Yeah.
When especially when you're on the streets, the phone goes away and my eyes are on the buildings.
Absolutely.
They got to be. So
Absolutely. I do keep it unlocked in the camera position though, Chris, in case I did roll up on something very nice that I want to take a photograph of all day long.
So, what you guys have your own fire academy, correct?
Well, we got to run a facility, but we train our own people
Okay.
within. Yeah.
So, what do you guys do for your recruits for the building construction besides just like the typical book lecture that you're talking about?
So-
do you guys do more?
Well, right now, my goal is to get them to pass the Fire 1 test. When they pass the Fire 1 test, we have a van. There's 14 of them. We're going to be in the city, and we're going to do a little walking tour. But I was able to bring in a lot of visual aids. I have like a ton of visual aids that I was able to bring in them. So I brought that around. It was able to pass it around the room and look at them and, see different things. So that was important to me. That one and the fire behavior are so important to me for them to understand. I mean, fire behavior is a whole nother animal that's poorly taught,
Right.
especially in America alone. You see that Europe is the
Yeah.
place for fire behavior. It's crazy.
And the thing is, so, that the fire behavior the past 10 to 15 years, has taken definitely a leading role in our academy stuff, as it should, with all the UL stuff, great. But the thing is with that is you can scale that down and literally bring that inside the classroom. And this is pyrolysis, right? How do you do that with a brick and joist building, right? That's the thing is if you don't get out in the streets and all
I agree.
is a book, you're doing a big disservice to anyone you're teaching.
You could just walk down an
Just walk
alleyway
down an
and,
alleyway,
and just
right.
see all kinds of stuff. And, people translate information visually. There's no doubt about it. So I'm a visual learner. So if I can see it, I mean, I can watch a rope be tied in the book multiple times or see a video of it. But if I can see it in front of me, I'm gonna be able to do something with that. And like you said, like, hey, here's a spandrel wall. Touch it.
Yeah.
There it is.
Right.
You're gonna remember it so much better.
Absolutely.
Cast iron columns all day. Like, hey, there's always, hey, is that cast? I don't know. I have to go up and kink on it.
yeah.
I'm not sure. It might be painted. I don't know. And
No,
that's the thing is when we do these classes, I almost say I don't know as much as I have an answer to their question, because some of the stuff there's just an anomaly out there, or I legitimately don't have an answer for them. Because you're
Well,
always finding something new.
always. I mean, that's the
So
one thing
it's
with
great.
And there is a lot of handy people out there in the world that work on their houses and do things that maybe a normal contractor
Right.
wouldn't do. I'm not saying it's illegal or wrong or whatever, but I've seen some really crafty, interesting things that could hurt us.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
I think it's just as a fire service in general, man, it's great to get your reps in with forcing doors and throwing ladders and stretching line, all that stuff. But man, that building instruction is where it is the bottom. It's your foundation. It's the basement of your firefighting soul.
Sure.
So like, if you want to recreate this firefighting version of yourself, start there.
Absolutely. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize, the brain drain in the fire service with the experience leaving the fire service, and then fires being down on the other end. know, where we left at the end of the day, we don't have the tradesmen, the carpenters and the framers anymore on duty with us on their day off jobs.
We certainly
So,
don't. I mean,
that's
my
starting
only
to-
trade is firefighting.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, I'm pretty terrible at everything else, you know, so it's
And-
how you, I think it's a shift that needs to happen. And I don't think it needs to come from the top, because I don't even think the top realizes it's a problem, right?
I tell you what, in these classes, you can't tell the chiefs from the probationary firefighters when it comes to, is this a type 2 or 4 building or a 1 or
There's always like one guy in the back that knows, and
Yeah,
you'll hear him real quietly like say it,
Right.
but he's waiting for everybody else to.
We want to make sure he's right.
No, like
Yeah.
he legit knows, but he's just kind of waiting to see.
There's
feel everybody
always the
else out.
one, either fire inspector in the room or someone who's a framer on their day off who
Mhm.
knows all this. But then, yeah, the
But
chief
he's the only one.
and the new kid legitimately don't know either.
Yeah.
You know, so they're in the same
Yeah,
boat.
yeah.
And it's humbling to see that. And it makes me feel good that at least we're filling a gap in the fire service. In my opinion, is to be a complete reformation in how building construction is taught in this fire service, because the new stuff is being way overemphasized for way too long.
It's you
Well,
know,
And the conversation always is like what's modern.
And that's, yeah, what's
right,
modern
like-
to you? That's a
I
subjective.
just,
completely
well,
subjective.
think about how I'm gonna be 40 when I say 20 years ago. It doesn't seem that long ago.
Right.
So, but what has changed? You don't think through COVID that building construction has changed? You don't think that with the price of wood, people have,
Yeah,
and
just
you
start
know,
cutting corners.
yeah, start
Pun
cutting corners.
intended.
You're literally, COVID affected so much, and we're gonna be paying for it for a long, long time, probably the rest of our careers in some way, shape, or form. It'll be something that, oh, we did this during COVID. We didn't put the, you know, the extra header in or whatever.
Right, yeah.
And boom, it came down. But, you know, modern to me is what's being built right now,
Right.
you know,
Sure.
like today. You know,
Right,
maybe 10 years ago, maybe it's not modern.
Mhm.
What's being built today, you know, or in the future. But I mean, legacy construction, this stuff has been around forever. These buildings are being repurposed left and right, man,
Mhm.
especially in, you know, even in these smaller towns, you know, there might be a historical building they don't want to get rid of. I know a theater that just got turned into a Planet Fitness,
Oh wow.
and a beautiful, beautiful theater. It sat vacant for my 20 years.
Mhm.
And then Planet Fitness came in and put a Planet Fitness in there, and you
That's
don't
very
think that
close.
changed the dynamic of
Yeah,
that building?
And that's the thing too, is you have these legacy rehabs that are now a mix. And then also you have something that really no one's studied yet, the last frontier in the fire service, which is modern furnishings inside a legacy building. There's not really any data points on that.
Now, and then that gets you into the rabbit hole conversation of fire behavior.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So like, you know, the two are so hand in hand. It's not even funny. I mean,
I mean, unless UL was framing up plaster and lath on multiple floors with, you know, I don't think they were or have. So,
they definitely weren't.
so,
So
but yeah, I mean, if you're taking all your fire data and what you know about fire behavior out of, you know, drywall gypsum rooms, and then the live burns that we have done out in the field are not in the older buildings, then now we have modern furnishings combined with the legacy building, with, we know why they're such a problem with the voids and such. You know, that's a totally different ballgame.
we did an acquired structure burn in Pennsylvania at a school that was built like in the 1940s, and we used the bathrooms as burn rooms.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was great.
Pipe
but-
chases.
Yeah, yeah,
perfect.
and that we had, the first thing we did was go in, recognize all the voids,
Yeah.
and close them up. Well, let me
Yeah.
tell you something. After about 30 minutes in it, I'm like, damn, I picked the wrong room because there were so many voids.
Yeah, the bathrooms.
There was,
not
it was
bad.
so many voids, but you know, I did it for the safety of students because of the floor and all, but you know,
And I tell you what, it's funny you bring up bathrooms, because that's been a discussion we've been having recently. My first fire in the city of St. Louis, I literally was inside of a burning building for 16 minutes and was in a collapse because I was in the bathroom. And I just didn't recognize it. I didn't know what a bathroom was. I didn't know what a bathroom meant in that context.
it's the heaviest room.
You
It's
could
the
almost
worst
do an
room to be in.
entire class on like legacy bathrooms and all the hazards that are
We
in
could do
them.
kitchen and bath.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You could do just progression of fire travel.
And that's just the stuff that we think people know, but then they don't. And we don't teach it well, and it doesn't get taught, and then it gets forgotten,
Well,
and then it
it's-
gets learned in a bad way.
Well, there you go. And it's like you said, but it's the responsibility of every senior officer or every senior firefighter, every company officer to come when they get a new firefighter, however they get them, you gotta break down some information for them. If you don't feel like doing that, then get out of the fire service, because you really have to take the new guy and show him some stuff. There's no, you need to let them know that, hey, you did get some information that is totally not applicable to anything you're ever going to do.
Do you guys have the ability or access to like acquired structures to?
Oh, yeah.
training in?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The one deputy chief has a vacant list.
Perfect.
And you're able to, you just got to, if you want to cut the roof, it's got to be very, very close to demolition. But, we go, I every time I get a permit, I had a kid on his very first day. He came to me and I took him out and we went right in a vacant and started hooking ceilings.
That's
Perfect.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
in our fire academy, we take them out on a bus like you guys are talking about, and we spend a solid week doing nothing but going around, showing them buildings, and then going around and overhauling in these buildings. The first day, it's terrible. They're breaking axes, they're breaking pike poles, they're bending tools. They have no idea how to use them. By the end of that week, they're solid with them tool techniques.
Yeah. No, because it's
They have to.
repetition.
It's repetition, right?
It's repetition. So I think anything we do is repetition. I think the more, I think with teaching things like building instruction, I think the more you hit on it, the more, you're able to build. So we actually have a guy on my job. He trains professional athletes and recruits go to him twice a week. And it's about a 15-minute drive from the academy to there. So on that 15-minute drive, I'm like, what type of construction? What's that?
Absolutely.
What's this? What's that? What's that? They're like, I'm sure I'm annoying to them, but I want them to get the repetition in
Sure.
of recognizing things. What is that on that building? What is that called? It's
Right.
it's good. It's I think everything we do at firefighting, you get better with repetition.
Mhm. Well,
So-
just in general, I mean, that's the only way you're gonna learn
The
it.
good thing about building instruction is not only is it the great equalizer, me and you have both taught classes on tactics and strategies. And by the end of the class, someone's mad and then someone else wants to punch you in the face. But when it comes to buildings, it's such a humbling subject matter that it literally subdues the room. There is no really argument or anything because they don't have an argument to put forth to anything you're saying.
It's true, and I do think it's a great way to describe it. That it is a great equalizing class to teach and be a part of. I just whenever I teach, I always start by saying I'm just going to give you my opinion based off my experience.
Sure.
So when you leave, you want them thinking, all right, I need to build off of what I just learned. Like I said, they just laid me a foundation. Now I need to build on it, and you got to give them the right tools to do so. And I think what you guys are doing, other people out there are doing, I think it's making an impact, and I think it's riding the ship in a direction
Sure.
because there's enough of us out there now making enough noise about it.
I think so. And it's definitely noticeable. A few years back, if you typed in legacy firefighting or firefighting on Main Street, you may have gotten one article, right?
Yeah.
And now, like you said, with it being more out there, I'm hoping more people like us step up and start emphasizing the right things.
Be part of the solution, not a part of the
Sure.
problem. So, if you have information out there and this is your jam, then
Yeah.
fire an article away.
Sure, yeah.
I would love to read it.
Absolutely. I always try to look for different perspectives. And that's what's really cool about when we go out and teach in these small towns or these other cities is building instruction is such a characteristic of each town or place that we're in. There's always some endemic quality of building that I don't see or know about that I get to learn about from the students. There's not a class I've ever taught about buildings that I haven't walked away that knowing something new or a couple
That's
of
why
things.
it's go all
It's
over. Like,
really cool to go
I don't I guarantee I terracotta roofs in California, Florida. I've never,
Yeah.
I've maybe seen one or two of them.
Sure.
I never
Right.
walked on one. I never touched it. I never cut it. I never pulled it apart. So if somebody does, I have a friend, Steve, he works in Sac City. He does. So those are things I want to learn from him
Right.
and talk about it. So, don't.
And that's something too. So when we go do classes, as long as it's under 10 hours, we always try to drive because on the way there, we try to stop off intermittently and to see the buildings change and to start picking up patterns. And it's just really cool to have your hand on the architecture in this country from that perspective.
I love it. I mean, I can't get enough of it.
Even the smallest towns in nowhere, anywhere have the
They-
coolest.
Yeah, and then
little
everybody has at
things
least,
to see.
one building, right?
Sure.
And even if you live in or work in like a suburban area that doesn't, you're probably gonna go mutual aid to somewhere that does.
Sure.
So you need to know what's around you.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, I'm the same way, Chris. I mean, I'll pull the car of my whole family.
Oh
to-
yeah,
to
absolutely.
grab. I don't
My whole
care.
crew knows what's up when I say stop.
Yeah.
I want to see something.
No, you're right. The architecture, the building construction, this country's so uniquely laid out, but it's all so uniquely similar as well.
Right.
Where, other countries aren't like that. So, we got to take advantage of it. And
The cool thing about buildings, I've also picked up on, opposed to other subjects is, man, I don't have to get anyone motivated to talk or teach about even the least motivated individual on your department. As soon as you get them out on the street, they start talking
I
about
agree.
buildings. Something about the buildings. I think it's just a general curiosity if I'm like that. The fact that we're going to be in these buildings, there's always a story. There's always something they bring to the table. They're always motivated. It's a very easy subject to get people motivated, and that's awesome.
yeah,
The buy-in is there.
I think it's also delivery too. People just sitting there and getting PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint is
No.
I can't believe it's still a thing.
Yeah.
Especially in our job, right? Like,
I can't believe.
And that's when we get asked to do these classes. That's the thing is like, we have got to go out to the street, because I can show you pictures all day, but if that's all you want, then it's not worth any of our time. It's a very disingenuous way of, first of all, it's not teaching, right?
I agree. When I teach forcible entry, I don't give a PowerPoint because I'd rather just take you, put the tool in your hand, put you on the door, and let's get
go.
rocking.
Right.
So,
well, and people are gonna learn like that. They have their hands on it, right?
Sure.
Where you're doing buildings, if you're walking in your own streets, looking at your own buildings, first of all, it's so much better because it's yours.
Sure.
And second of all, just that's the hands-on part, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the
and
only way
it's
you're gonna learn.
really cool to take these departments out into their small towns who have this preconceived notion of, I don't have bars, I don't have vacant buildings, I don't have fire escapes, I don't have any of that urban stuff. And then all of a sudden they're out in the street and, hey, look at that. Hey, there's bars. Hey, look at that. There's a fire escape. What do those stars mean? And then all of a sudden the 30-year guy who's disgruntled because he's not watching the football game, now he starts telling fire stories.
Yeah.
Hey, that fire this
Yeah,
time.
we did a job
we did
there.
that.
Yeah.
So man, I mean, just the chemistry that happens, and it's a really cool thing to see when we do these classes. And everyone walks away, it's just a win.
So what is your opinion on what the fire service can do to improve building construction training? Like, I know we've talked about, updating the information, going into different books.
I think more people need to get involved and get on these book committees.
Mhm.
I think, somebody like Chris sitting on an IFSTA book committee might be very good for that. But I also think there's a lot of sleeper cells out there, and that guys that know their shit. I don't know. Can I say shit?
I don't know.
Oh,
Sure.
Okay.
I just did.
Yeah.
Well,
They know what they're talking about. Like, it's time for them to step up and get involved in the game.
Mhm.
Not everybody's as good at teaching, but this is a subject where you're not necessarily teaching, more talking and describing.
Right.
So, I think if guys step up and like write trade articles and
you got to write the articles. And I get asked all the time what I think about the bad textbooks that are out there. And my response is it's easy for me to fill classrooms. They make it easier for me to fill classrooms because they're, the stuff they have is terrible and they're learning wrong.
they are learning wrong. I think at the academy level, it's just a JPR they hit and you move on with it.
Sure.
Like looking at some of the Keenan loop is still a JPR. The Keenan loop.
It's
Like, what are we doing here?
Right.
It's time.
it's-
The wrong people are in the driver's seat, and they need to retire and put some other people in that are a little more motivated and have some different ideas. The definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing over and over again.
expecting a different
Yeah.
So that when we do this podcast, we obviously know quite a few people in the fire service. And the apprehension to talk about buildings is another hurdle that I've noticed. Everyone thinks you have to be an architect or an engineer. You don't. All right. I was none of those things. A lot of this all of it is self-taught or through experience, or people who knew a lot more than me, who told me the importance of it. But the point is get out of your comfort zone and just talk about buildings. You know a lot more than you think you do.
I agree. I do. That's a good statement. I do think people do know more than they think they do. They might not know the terms,
Right.
but they got the definition down pat.
Sure.
So, you gotta, I don't know. I mean,
And don't be afraid to be wrong. I mean, know how many
Oh,
times we
shit.
get tripped up on buildings. I like that when that happens because I'm like, oh, it got me.
causes you
Yeah.
to do a little more investigation
Right.
and
I'm
figure
like,
it out.
oh, I thought that was a type 2. Shoot, this is a redone, type 5. It got me good. They put fake buttressing up on this thing. Congrats to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And it's, we saw it on the opposite side. We were in Dallas a couple months ago, and they're making the new stuff look old mixed in with older buildings. So not only,
That's all the rage.
Yeah, that's-
right.
that's a
So they're
huge
going
thing.
over the top with these historical architects who really know what's going on.
Sure.
they had
And,
the one we were looking at
it's
had
tough.
like purging on it, but where it was at was like in just
the-
weird spots, and they had some fake tuck pointing put in.
If it wasn't for knowing where damage is on brick buildings,
We wouldn't have
always in
known.
pre-existing openings above doors or windows, if it wasn't for knowing that, I would have bet my pension that this building was an old building.
So it's funny you say that. I just saw, it's an older building, older type 3 ordinary, end of the row, and it's getting redone. And the dude was out there with a chisel and a hammer, and he's hitting away all the mortar in between the bricks. So I was like, what was this guy doing? So we pulled over. I struck up a conversation. He's like, I'm making it look vintage.
Oh, okay.
So, and he was
Well,
going to paint
that's gonna
it.
help us.
Like, but I'm saying, like, this
Yeah.
is like the mindset is make it look
Make it
vintage.
Right.
Gold, yeah. That's interesting, yeah.
That is
Yeah.
really interesting. So we talked a little bit about overhaul before, but does your academy or you guys with your new guys, overhaul is huge in legacy construction, right? It's not the
Yeah.
after the fire thing. That's like how you fight the fire.
Yeah,
How do you guys build that into your building construction? Do you do some hands-on stuff with the overhaul
sure.
in the buildings, or what kind of stuff do you do?
So
for that?
my plan is for them is I'm going to take them into the vacant houses that are about to be demolished, and I will open up the whole ceiling. And as we're opening and pulling, I'm going to start, as I peel back, I'm going to show them construction features as we peel, and just keep it consistently going. Like Chris said, do that 4 or 5 or 6 times and let them visually see it. I want them to visually learn by doing it.
Sure.
That's what I want them to do.
Sure, yeah, I mean, if you can connect the psychosomatic skill to a visual element, it's a synergistic effect, right? And that's what we do when we get these vacant buildings. We slow them down. They don't get to tear anything up in the first room, because the first room is essentially our classroom. We put everything on the walls, what we're looking for, what the methodology is for, pull this first before this, or this will happen, or then we'll let them pull a wall before a baseboard, then ask them to pull the baseboard. Now they're like, crap, right? You learn those things that way, but you slow them down, have a method. Don't just let them go crazy with a wrecking crew, right? No one learns that way.
Yeah.
So you have
No,
to
nobody
set them
learns.
up and have a nice plan when you get them in these vacant buildings, because we see it too often. An department gets a vacant building. There's a dozen or so or more new firemen that want to do some stuff, one instructor, and all of a sudden they scatter and just tear holes in everything, and no one really walks away understanding what happened. So
No, I agree. And I think knowing the process of firefighting, I think that's like my main thing I'm trying to get them down, like to show them. So I'll show them like some videos. I'll show them some GoPro stuff that people have sent me. And I just try to explain the process to them, like when the overhaul occurs. Well, overhaul occurs immediately,
simultaneously.
It's exactly. So, but like I would explain to them, like knowing your knowledge of building construction is going to help you know where to start the overhaul process.
Sure.
So it's, it's
And
things like that.
That's the one thing that I could say was the biggest difference between, I came up in more of a suburban combination fire service, and then transitioning over and working in an urban old legacy, building stock department, was the overhaul, just that aspect of it happening sometimes to find the fire, and just how good you had to be ahead of the fire. That skill set was, in my opinion, the biggest difference, what separates an urban from a suburban, environment and department.
Sure.
That skill set just seems to get watered down the more you get out of a legacy environment, to where
Sure.
almost it turns into an afterthought. Overhaul crap, I gotta do that. To where in the urban,
Well, they're also being taught not to do it.
and that's another big thing too. The person who says don't wreck things and the person who says pull that ceiling are both correct in the fact that they want to save the building in different ways. I don't want to come back for a rekindle. The other person just doesn't want to make her homeowner mad. Like, which one is it?
True.
Right? Which
No,
stakes are higher? in
It's
that?
factual, very
Yeah.
factual.
So
Well, do you have any other questions for Bobby?
no, other than
Thanks for having
thank
me, man.
you. So
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. You just want
Appreciate
to tell the listeners where they can get a hold of you or find your
Yeah,
stuff?
Instagram's the easiest app for me to use. So I'm Eckert _335, and then EckertFireTactics.com would be the best way to get a hold of us and see what we do. We do a lot of hands-on fire training firemen. We love it.
Awesome. Thanks again for listening, and thanks, Bobby, for coming on, taking time out of your day for us.
Thanks for having me.
Hope everybody enjoys the rest of FDIC.